ready to arise. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Reverend Denny and Reverend Denny and Marilyn. I've known these ladies for 30 years. Has nothing to do with being 30 years older, I'm sure. Oh, what a wonderful evening. I am so excited here. I don't know about the rest of you, but I love ceremony. I love pageantry. And more importantly, I love transitions and the way that we move through the cycles of our lives. Each of us finds within us that place of celebration during times like this. You may be a brand new person, you just got here last Sunday and you decided, oh, these people are going to do something, I'll show up. You may be like Reverend Kay, one of the founding ministers. You may be a member of the board. Each of us finds within ourselves that place for what's going on here this evening. Reverend Jack, I have to say, I have heard your name for so many years, always with love. And I have attended, somewhere between 40 and 50 different kinds of ceremonies like this, from graduations of ministerial students and practitioners to the ordinations, to the installations, to the retirement parties, and so on. And I've never heard anybody give a talk the way you did with your prayer. And I was thinking as I sat there, this is one of my takeaways this evening, that from this day forward, as a minister and as a human being, I want every word I say to be a prayer of gratitude and appreciation because of you. Now, I'm sure those of you that hired Reverend Darlene found out a little bit about her before you hired her. Well, there's more. I am very pleased that she and I have been friends for, I had to calculate this, it's 28 years. We started in the School of Ministry together. We had each completed our practitioner training, she much before I did. She was one of the youngest ministers in our training program ever. She's older now. But at the time, she was considered one of the babies. And she blew everybody else out of the water. So, the piece that was read to you from the Science of Mind textbook, Peace be unto thee, stranger, enter and be not afraid. If you didn't know it before now, you now know who Darlene Dunning is. Peace be unto you, and enter into my presence, totally unafraid. Because I am here to welcome you into a greater dimension of yourself. You want to know who your minister is, that's who she is. And through all of her work, through the School of Ministry, through her time in the Pastoral Care Department at the Huntington Beach Church with Dr. Peggy Bassett, through her work with Dr. Linda McNamara, and her work with people doing worldwide projects, she has always been that place of peace and poise and power that Holmes talks about, where you can fill your well, you can share the joy that's bubbling out of yours, and you can ask, where have you been and what worked for you? What is your next step? May I join you and go along? And the answer is always yes. The answer with Darlene is always yes. First and foremost, I long for people like that in my life. I've tried to work with some people in different churches, and you have to go through 18 no's. It won't work that way. We can't do it that way. You don't understand. Let me fix this for you. Darlene is always yes. And now let's work together to find the way to make that happen, so that we're all fulfilled, so that we're all blessed. And so in that process, she is very much a light in this world. She brings her own light, and she does whatever's necessary to inflame our own, whether it be already burning or it be slightly diminished or almost completely out. Now I will tell you, just like any good folks that we might know, it isn't always a bunch of roses in our life, in her life, in anyone's life. But the key that I got from her through our studies, through our friendship, we were roommates. I'll tell you the rest of the story on the reception. That was an adventure. But through that entire process, even when it gets difficult, even when it appears that she stubbed her toe, even when there may be grave sadness, frustration, anger, and upset associated with whatever's taking place, never doubt that this woman knows home base. Never doubt that she knows that one place for sure. Dr. Holmes said in the textbook, it's one of my all-time favorite quotes, he says, stay with the one and never deviate from it, never leave it for a moment. Because to desert the truth in the hour of need is to prove that we don't know the truth. This is a woman who knows the truth. This is a woman who does not stay straight from it very long because her own inner light burns brightly enough that there's always that welcoming extra step in front. It seems dark right here, but the light is already being cast forward, inviting, welcoming, encouraging to come and be part of that beauty and joy that is spirit. Don't go there. So what we're doing here this evening is a very exciting thing because, yes, it's about two individuals we named and have spoken their names frequently, Reverend Jack and Reverend Darlene. But it's really about this entire body of people who are here today. Again, if you just walked in off the street or you're here every single Sunday, this evening is about you. It's a rite of passage for this community. It's also a rite of passage for each one of us because we have the opportunity through our Declaration of Principles, through the readings of the beautiful writings of Dr. Holmes, through the wonderful music, to reassess our own lives and say, and what is my next step? And where am I to go? And where am I to carry my light into the world? Darlene's taken hers a lot of places in the world. Where will we take ours from this moment forward? And so during this evening, each of us participates, and I'm going to be asking several people to do that in a very specific way in a few moments. Take a deep breath for just a moment and ask yourself, where is my light leading me right now? Not the light of God we're asking for guidance from. It's not our teacher, our way shower, to give us the pathway and then keep it lit for us. But the question is, where is my light leading me right now? So that's what we're setting as a mental equivalent for all of us this evening. That each of us participates fully in this service. Even if you don't have the name of practitioner or board member or key volunteer or musician, we are all part and parcel of that one. A favorite quote of one of the mentors of Reverend Darlene and I is by George Bernard Shaw. And it goes like this. I want to be thoroughly used up when I die. For the more I work, the more I live. Life is no brief candle to me, but a splendid torch which I have got hold of for just a little while. And I want to make it burn as brightly as possible before handing it on to future generations. Tonight we see that torch pass from a being of light to a being of light. From the founders of this community to those of you who sit here today. Will we, together, allow it to burn as brightly as possible before we hand it off? And so in that consciousness, let us begin our installation ceremony. I get to preach a little bit more. Ministers, leadership council, licensed practitioners, congregation, and friends. We are gathered here today to rededicate ourselves to the sacred presence and work of this spiritual community in the high desert. And we are here to confirm Reverend Darlene Dunning as its spiritual leader and senior minister. Tonight, each of us rededicates ourselves to the sacred mission of this center, to be a healing presence and a teaching order of principles of science of mind. That's what we came here to do. You, the members of this center, have declared in your own mission statement, we are a spiritual community teaching and healing hearts to live inspired lives. And you hold this vision to create a world of love, abundance, and acceptance for one and all. For the 15 years, this spiritual community has come together to bless lives by sharing the life-changing principles of science of mind. It and all of its like spiritual communities have gone through different challenges, different times of life where things didn't go so well, and also times of great triumph, times of great celebration. What you may have experienced here over the years is not specific to you. It happens. As one of our mentors today says, hey, it's just a church. Just a church. What's the problem? But together we continue the work because we are committed to it, to the sacred work that lies ahead and the promise of being a true healing presence in the world. Dr. Holmes said at one of the dedications of our churches that he wanted the consciousness in this room to be so focused on the reality of wholeness and healing that people will drive by never even knowing what takes place in here and they will be healed. Yes. And so we dedicate ourselves to that. And when we do a charge or a duty, an assignment to someone, we usually say, you know, do you promise to do this? We say, yes, I promise. Or yes, I will. Or yes, I do. And then it just becomes another task, another thing we have to do. But what we know in our deeper work is it's the willingness, it's the beingness of spirit, the awakening of the reality of all that we are inside of us. And until we take full ownership of what lies before us, we will never achieve it in a highly successful way. At best, it will be a struggle. At worst, it will be a complete failure. And so tonight, we won't have any I wills and I do's. We're going to do it differently, as most religious scientists like to do. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to speak to the different groups that we're going to celebrate here this evening. And I will make a declaration to you. I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to make an affirmative statement about you and the nature of your involvement here. And instead of saying, as I do or I will, I want you to own it and say, I am. I am that which I came here to be and to do. Are you up for that?
I am.
I am? Now, just to help you out with that, When you're supposed to say I am, I'm going to ring the bell. It's not very loud. Can you hear that? Okay. So when I do that, everybody who's supposed to says I am. So
I am.
I like it. All right. So we begin this evening with the people who are the core of this center, and that's the members. You see, the minister, the board, the practitioners, the activities here would not exist without the members first coming together and saying, this is what we want to do. Now let's find people who like to do what needs to be done. And so I will ask if all of the registered members of this center would please stand. Take a nice deep breath with me, please, in recognition of your commitment to your own spiritual teaching and to the life that you came to live, that we get to be witness to by your presence. You are the voice of this center. You are the ambassadors for all centers for spiritual living here in the high desert community. You are the backbone, serving as volunteers in some cases, and you provide a sacred service. You are the ones who uphold and practice the science of mind principles moment by moment in your daily lives.
I am.
As such, this evening you are renewing your commitment to promise to uphold the vision of this center.
I am.
If the time comes when you have a differing opinion with the leadership or one another in this center, you are the ones who pray and meditate first, and then harmoniously speak directly with those involved to find the resolution.
I am.
This evening, you are renewing your commitment to give of your time, the gifts of your service, and your financial support to this center.
I am.
Minister, practitioners, and lay leaders of this center count on your active support. They count on your feedback and assistance as they go about fulfilling its mission. By your declaration this evening, you are reaffirming that support and that dedication to this mission.
I am.
So it is. Please be seated. Thank you. Now I would ask the Leadership Council to stand. The Board of Trustees, those who are the ones who do the business of this center, those who are the ones who see that things get done and the fundraising takes place and all of those other different things that are assigned to them and developed by them. We now present those individuals who've been elected to serve on this council and proceed to install them in that service and to dedicate their services. This council is charged with providing loving guidance and fiscal management for this spiritual community. Not only do these council members oversee the business affairs of your center, but their individual and collective awareness establishes a consciousness for the entire congregation. Recognizing the authority you have trusted to them, we now charge them with this responsibility. To the Leadership Council, individually and collectively, you are daily called to follow the light of truth, seeking at all times to be aware of what is right rather than who is right. You are selected in honor and in that truth to guide this center into its greater dimension. Even in your capacity as the leadership, you are still teachable in the practice of spiritual and business principles, so that your guidance leads to an increasing demonstration of peace, love, joy, harmony, and abundance that is Spirit living through you and through this center. Reverend Darlene Dunning has joined you in that leadership and guidance as your senior minister. By this activity this evening, you are formally accepting and welcoming her into this community. In partnership with her, you stand poised to lead this congregation on the path of loyalty and unity, demonstrating such a strength and steadfastness of purpose and practice that this center shall stand as a shining light of truth to the world. Thank you. So it is. You may be seated. Now I ask our practitioners to stand. And I know there are practitioners visiting from other centers, and so if you would care to stand as well, to stand with your colleagues, and perhaps rededicate yourself at the same time. The Irish poet John O'Donoghue wrote, "It is such a privilege to have people who continue each day to bless us with their love and prayer. These inner friends of the heart confer on us gifts beyond measure. There is such a beauty in having people who practice profound faithfulness, praying for us each day. Often there are lonesome frontiers in our lives we could not cross or endure without the inner sheltering of these prayers. It is not a luxury to have such support. It is a necessity. As practitioners, you carry out most of your work in the great and powerful silence. The fruits of this work are manifested as demonstrations in the lives of yourselves, your clients, and your center. Your minister knows and understands the sacred role of the licensed practitioner, for she has been one herself far longer than she has been a minister. It is an integral part of the ecclesiastical team and establishes and maintains a continuing consciousness of spiritual vision for this center. And so I affirm with you this evening that by your presence and participation this evening, you are renewing your consecration to your own sacred work in prayerful silence, as well as being a voice of spiritual truth in this community.
I am.
You are rededicating yourself to be constantly aware of the Spirit within all people, as you see only the perfect spiritual person, perfect in mind, perfect in body, and perfect in spirit.
I am.
You are committing to serve faithfully and lovingly the people of this congregation, and to seek ever to be an example of the principles we teach.
I am.
You now draw into your circle of this same service your new minister, Reverend Darlene Dunning, and you are committed to her wholeness, her health, her ministry, and her success.
I am.
So it is. Please be seated. Thank you. A minister doesn't just work one day a week. It may look like it, but there's so much that goes on all the time in our awareness, in our consciousness, in our planning, in our own individual demonstrations and prayer work. A minister of the Centers for Spiritual Living acts in a threefold capacity within the center in filling this office. She is the spiritual leader of the community and has the responsibility for the overall fulfillment of the mission. Simple. She plans and conducts all religious services. She supervises all classes of instruction. She provides leadership and supervision of all activities of all practitioners, other ministers, organizations, and groups associated with this ministry. The senior minister is the Chief Administrative Officer, reporting to the council, and she is responsible for overseeing the day-to-day business affairs within the center. So she hires a business manager. Every minister of the Centers for Spiritual Living must first receive a license and a recognition as a practitioner, which she has done, and serve mightily in that role. So she works first to establish the consciousness of a practitioner within her in her ministerial duties, always seeking that perfection of spirit within each person, within each activity, and within herself. And so I now present to the Leadership Council and the congregation of the High Desert Center for Spiritual Living Reverend Darlene Dunning to be duly confirmed as the official senior minister of this center. Darlene, would you please join me?